Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight. I have a wonderful guest, a guest that I've had before, a guest that I've had a second time, and I'm not sure if I've had a guest a third time, but we often speak, and so it's, having my guest on tonight is just like having a friend. Let me welcome Nick Tharcher. Hi, Nick, how are you doing?
Hello, Mona. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
Very
well,
happy to have this time with you again.
it's been a while, but I
It
know that
has. You've been busy, though.
Yeah, I have been busy. I've been busy, and that's our life. It's one of those things where people always say, take some time out for yourself. But I says, well, this is my time.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing from my end. And it's like, what? What does that really mean? This is what I
Exactly.
love doing.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Well, I know that Original Falcon has a long history, and if you can just even refresh my memory and everyone else's, how long has Original Falcon been around? Because I know that there was a discrepancy in the beginning, or let's just say halfway through. Um, about the two domains and the actual name of the Original Falcon, which basically on your site is the Original Falcon Press. But
Well, Falcon certainly has had an interesting history. The company actually goes back over 30 years to about 1980, and at that time it was called Falcon Press. At that time, it was created by Dr. Christopher Hyatt, myself, his wife, and a few other people, and began publishing Crowley and Regardie books primarily at the beginning, and then shortly thereafter, some of Hyatt's titles as well. And it remained Falcon Press until about 1979, or 89 rather, as I recall, when we heard from a company in northern part of the U.S. that actually was using the same name
hmm
and had a few months on us. So we just had a nice amicable relationship and said, okay, fine, you guys keep calling yourself Falcon Press Publishing Company and we'll be New Falcon Press.
hmm.
Uh, so that's how that change took place. The big change, of course, happened right after Dr. Hyatt died in 2008 when some rather unsavory events happened immediately before his death, and his biological son got the dying Dr. Hyatt to sign a piece of paper
hmm
that gave him control over New Falcon, or actually the parent company of New Falcon. That was extraordinarily upsetting to all of us who had been involved. He had no involvement in the press. He had no involvement in publishing or the occult or any of the
Mm.
subjects that we were involved with. His primary profession at that time was as a basketball coach, which, as I understand, he is no longer due to some unsavory events that happened at his employer. So, with that, we decided to create a new press with the name Original Falcon because, well, it is the original Falcon, the real people who were really involved at the
Right.
beginning, and with the books that we were involved with. And that's what we've been doing for now over 5 years. And New Falcon Publications still exists. More and more books seem to be falling out of their line. They have fewer and fewer. Well, I think they've had two new titles, one of which seems not to even be there anymore. Uh, the other title was a book that Michael Miller's mother and father wrote. When I say father, I don't mean Dr. Hyatt. He had been adopted
Oh.
some years ago, many years ago, after Hyatt, who, as many of you know, was his legal name was Alan Miller. He and his first wife split up, and then Michael Miller was adopted by her new husband,
Oh. Okay.
Benjamin Graeber. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of things. We've been busy, as you are undoubtedly aware, creating new versions of books and new editions of books, new titles. We've come out with a whole bunch of new things in the
Right.
last 5 years, a bunch of Hyatt videos, books by other authors. And it's been a very busy time. One of the big changes that we've made in the last year or so is eBooks.
Yes.
They have finally come of age. Going back about 20 years, people were telling us how we should create ebooks. It's the coming future. And they were right, of course. They were just 20 years off. But, about 2 years ago, they finally hit their stride when Amazon came out with the Kindle, and I think it was
Right.
2007 or thereabouts, finally got going, and ebooks certainly have been doing quite well for us since then. We've got almost all of our titles out now as ebooks, and we should have all the rest out by the end of the year.
Wow. That is incredibly a lot. I have a question about the ebooks, though. Have you seen, because there's a lot of piracy that has been involved with a lot of the PDFs that are out. How have you managed to combat the actual piracy?
Well, that is a very difficult thing to do, perhaps an impossible task with all of the BitTorrent stuff that's out there and other sharing technologies. What we found is, for the most part, it's not worth doing. The PDF editions that you've seen, we've seen over the years, generally are crappy scans of the books, and if
Right.
somebody wants those, they'll find them. It's impossible to police. Some of them are on sites that are in obscure countries that you couldn't even find, and no way to contact them even if you wanted to. So it's kind of like the music industry. If you want to pirate it, it can be done. It will be done. But the fact is that most people that want our books want clean copies, hard copy or ebook. They don't want to screw us over by stealing things. There are
Sure.
some people who have a little different idea. Unfortunately, there's a certain segment of the occult that has the notion that everything should be free.
Yes, I've heard of
Yeah,
that club.
yeah. Uh, and the notion that just because we produce a book, we are now indebted to them somehow. Never been our cup of tea. Hyatt always found it to be a riot. He'd get emails from people, letters from people before emails happened, saying, "Well, I bought your book, and essentially now you owe me." And he would just laugh, and I'd laugh, and that would be the end of it. And it still goes on. But the fact is, most of the people that that read our material understand that we are not commie pinkos.
Hmm.
And
Yes,
if
indeed.
that's the way they want to play it, that's fine. But they're not going to get anything here. We're going to always continue to be kind and pleasant and helpful. We bend over backwards to help people in all kinds of ways. But as soon as I hear the "you owe me" idea, please go away.
No, that's comical, and no one ever better not say something like that to me. But let's go over to Dr. Hyatt, because I know that he was a very and still is a huge part of let's just say the personality of what lots of people do remember and know original Falcon. It's almost like he's a legacy. Um, have any of the works that he's done in the past been I guess repackaged into a current state of technology or current state of redistribution?
Well, it's an interesting thing that you ask. For first statement, I would say that we don't want to be screwing around with his works,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, should you note, New Falcon Publications has been doing a lot of that. They came out with versions of Undoing Yourself that were just rape and pillage. Came out with an
Mm.
edition of Enochian World that stripped out all of his work entirely. I don't get that at all.
Mm-hmm.
We have been doing some retypesetting to make cleaner, easier to read editions, but we try our best not to screw around with somebody else's work.
Yes, indeed.
That being said, we certainly are creating ebook editions that, to the extent possible with current technology, will look very much like the existing titles. But right now I'm working, for example, on Sex, Magic, Tantra, and Tarot, and there are certain places where just slight layout changes make it so much more readable. in the ebook edition, whereas in the print you have a little different layout. That's the sort of thing we're looking at, not to change around words or content.
I see.
There are some things that are coming up, however, when you speak of distribution channels and such. Certainly in the ebooks, that has changed a lot of things. You can find ebooks in a great many places these days. Most of them aren't worthwhile, so we haven't really made any attempt at them. But Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and iTunes are the three major players. Kobo perhaps is next,
Yeah.
and we're still looking to see whether we want to get into that market, but we are very much in the other three. Plus, the ebooks are all available directly from our website now.
Yes, I've noticed that. I mean, you have actually kept up with technology, which is really great because these days it's a matter of really keeping up with the Joneses in a way, or at least with technology as when it goes to that. But I have a couple ethical questions to ask you about let's just say literary aspects of the occult and really maintaining and retaining the actual, let's just say, essence of books. Now, you mentioned ebooks, and granted, I'm very technical. I mean, I'm one of the I'm always into the technical aspect of things. However, at the same token, there is another part of me that loves to hold a book. Are you promoting more of the technology because it's easier to reproduce and it's more economical and maybe probably a huge ROI, in reference to your return of investment on everything, or is it because this is the trend that you would like to go? I mean, where are the books? It's to the point of now one could say that you are contributing to many of the occult bookstores going out of business, but then at that, I have to say at the same token, it's a matter of how people manage their businesses as well on the street.
Well, I don't think the bookstores need me to make a break. I can say that.
Yeah.
They've mostly managed to do that on their own, and I don't mean just the mom and pop occult bookstores, but the chains as well. We've seen the demise of several of them over the last few years, and for good reason. It's just not as economical an enterprise as it used to be, and that's been the case with a whole bunch of things, not just books. But that being said, I am in total agreement with you that what I like to have in my hands is a book. I don't own an ebook reader. I don't have a Kindle or a Nook or any of those things. I don't have an iPad. I don't have an iPhone. I barely use the phone that I have because it's just not something that appeals to me very much. Mind you, I've been in the technology field myself for most of my life, but I don't find a whole lot of use for it. I certainly have no use for Facebook and Twitter and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Even in publicity and things of that kind. So much of the technology changes that we've been getting into is mostly because of demand.
I see.
But that certainly is not going to change that we're going to produce and continue to produce hard copy books as long as we can possibly do so, which is almost certainly as long as I live and as long as you live, and there'll still be hard copy books out there.
Sure.
There are certain books that are never really going to work very well as an electronic version, like the complete Golden Dawn system of Magick. It's just too massive.
Yeah.
And while we have it in PDF form, which is to say it looks exactly like the hard copy book, as soon as you go to ebook form, you start actually losing capability. Like that beautiful, massive 100-page index becomes useless.
Yeah, you know what? I have to say that I have had some huge PDF files, and it's not the same thing as turning the page. It's not the same thing as holding even the heaviness of a book like that.
No,
this is
it's
not.
an 8-pound doorstop, as Regardie used to call it. And it is just a gorgeous book. One of the most beautiful books I've ever had. And most people, I think, who've gotten it agree it's just so much better to have it. But if you want to make notes, you may not want to deface the hard copy you have. If you want to print things out and make separate copies of things to carry around with you, then the PDF is a wonderful thing to have in that way. That's why a lot of people get both. But I don't see it as an ebook anymore, as I see a lot of the books out there right now as ebooks. They're just
Mm-hmm.
doing it for the hell of it. And a lot of the people who are talking about these things these days talk about enhanced ebooks with embedded audio and video and links and all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
and none of that's going anywhere. In fact, textbooks even are not doing very well
Yeah. Right.
because students don't like them. It's as simple as that. I see ebooks very much having a place. They are there to go out on the beach and not worry about sand getting in your pages, maybe is nice. To go in the backyard in the sun, go on a plane and have a lot of books in this one
Yes.
device.
Right.
Plenty of places for that. But I
Sure.
still want real hard copy books, and most of the technophiles that I know feel very much the same way. They want hard copy, and we are going to continue producing those. There is an exception, however, that's interesting for us. One book that we have not done in hard copy and we did as ebook only, one called The Moldavite Enigma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a book about this absolutely gorgeous stone called Moldavite. And in order to be able to produce the thing with the full color images of this gorgeous stone, and there are dozens of them in there, we really had to do it as an ebook because the cost of a hard copy book would be off the planet.
Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes a lot
And
of sense. Yeah.
so that's one example of where I see ebook technology working well. Mind you, if you put it on a plain vanilla Kindle, it's not going to help you because that doesn't support color. But if you do it on an iPad or Nook or the Kindle Fire, it works great. And you can't beat it for color. So there's an example of where we found we could produce a book that we would not otherwise have been able to do very easily.
Hmm.
There
I
may be
see.
some exceptions that we'll run across, but we're just going to keep producing hard copies. We have a new Hyatt title coming out in just a few days called Hard Zen, Soft Heart. That book is going to come out simultaneously in hard copy and as an ebook, so people can get it in whatever form or both forms that they want.
You know, he seems to have had a vault of work that just comes out of the clear blue. Does he have? I mean, is there a lot of work that hasn't been published that he has done in prior to his passing on?
Not so much complete titles. Hard Zen is perhaps an exception that I'll mention in a moment if I get to it. But there were a lot of snippets, essays, things of that kind that he
Okay.
did, books that he started on and then abandoned at one time or another, books he started sometimes with other people, lost interest in. Uh, but there are still pieces and parts of a bunch of those, and we will probably be collecting those at one point. There was some video from the two seminars that he did in 2006 and 2007 that we would like very much to go through, but we're talking about an enormous amount of video,
I
40
see.
hours or more,
Yeah.
and just to pick out the pieces that would be of interest. But it's definitely something that we have on the shelf. Hard Zen was a little different. That's a book that he started with Diana Hartman
Mm-hmm.
back in the late 1990s, and pretty well completed, sort of. But then focus changed because
Mm-hmm.
technology was making it possible to do better audio and video than ever before. So he kind of pushed that to the side and went into doing the Radical Undoing series, the Energized Hypnosis series that he could do on audio and video, which was always something we wanted to do because a book like Undoing Yourself itself has a lot of great exercises in it, as does many of the other books, but unfortunately, words can only convey so much.
Yes.
Video is really the place to do when you're doing real physical exercises. And that finally culminated with the Radical Undoing series, which unfortunately Hyatt was not able to complete before his passing, but we have done so since. That is really where his focus had been for the last many years. So Hard Zen, Soft Heart sat on the shelf. We picked it up, went back to Diana Hartman as co-author.
Okay.
Together we did a re-edit on it, brought it up to date a little bit, and
It
something
must have
that's
been
been...
hard. It must have been hard to actually take the, the combination, and then it's sort of like a recompilation of how they do some of the videos of those, when singers get, the past and then the present, then they bring the two together.
Hard is certainly the word. Difficult in many ways, and technically not so much, perhaps.
Yeah.
But emotionally, it was heart-wrenching. It's literally been a book that I've been working on and off on for the last 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I could pick it up, work on it for a little while, announce that it was going to be out in 3 months, and then have to put it down again because I just couldn't handle the pain of working on it.
Yeah.
And finally, now we've done it, and it's
Ah.
going to be out.
When will that be approximately?
It's on press right now, so I would anticipate we'll have it in our hands in about 30 to 45 days. We'll have the ebook out at the same time.
Wow, incredible. That's incredible. Is there any? Well, I guess it's unfair for me to say, and then just kick me. But is there anyone close that you would consider to the capacity of what Dr. Hyatt has put out that you feel that you could possibly work with today, that could possibly I guess carry on the legacy going forward, that you know of, that you're in contact with?
Well, there's sort of two different questions that I tease out from what you just said. One is, do I see anyone of the stature of Dr. Hyatt who can carry on his work? And another is, do I see any people of stature at all out there?
Ouch.
And I'll handle the second question first.
Okay.
Not many.
Yes,
Not
indeed.
many.
Okay, all right.
One of the things that we despair of sometimes is finding new works to publish.
Yes, indeed. That was my question, because it is the hardest thing, and it's so hard that I have to make a point here, because I have noticed something. In the beginning, the way publishing was, because I've watched publishing and I followed it. Before, it was a writer would submit some work to a publishing house. A publishing house would say, your work sucks, your work is good, I'll publish it for you, either or. And if it wasn't good enough, the writer actually went back, back to the drawing board and did whatever they did. Then came self-publishing, and people started publishing their own stuff. Whereas it didn't really matter, and you get lots of crap out sometimes, and sometimes you get some very nice stuff. You get some very nice material. And now it's come to the point where is that many people have even started their own publishing houses, quote unquote. So there's a self-owned publishing house. I don't know what acronym that is for that, because I know there's an acronym for self-publishing. But many people are now even publishing their own, having their own little publishing houses. So with that, and with the lack of, let's just say, quality of people such as the late Dr. Hyatt, what is your take on all that?
Well, I think it's terrific in a certain respect. There's a great many books that are being published directly by the authors. For one, it makes it possible, the current technology makes it possible for that to happen, whereas before, publishers would sit in there flipping our ivory towers,
Yeah.
passing judgment about stuff, and there's tons of very good books that never made it because they didn't see them as commercial. On the other hand, these same publishers would produce an inordinate amount of crap themselves.
Yeah.
It's very much like the film business. You take a look at the number of movies that come out, most of them are garbage.
Yes.
They mercifully make no money, disappear quickly. But if the studio has maybe 3 or 4 really good selling movies, they've had a wonderful year. If they, on the other hand, have 2 or 3, they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes the difference between a good year and a bad year with the mountain of crap that they publish. There have been estimates made years ago that I found very entertaining. that something like 2/3 of all of the books published back years ago, 2/3 lost money.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this is with all the selection committees and editors and mumbo
Of
and
course.
jumbo. 2/3 lost money. And I've heard it as high as 3/4. That tells you a lot. Now, in niches like ours, that's generally not the case. We've had very, very, very few books that have lost money. But in the general market, fiction and all the rest, huge numbers lose money. Now, what's happened with the current technology is that publishers have largely become obsolete insofar as selection goes. If an author wants to publish something, he can do it. And he can do it without going to some vanity publisher,
Yes.
as we used to
Yes.
call
The
it.
vanity. Exactly. Yeah.
And for years, there were companies out there that would publish anything, but everybody knew who they were. Booksellers knew who they were, and they wouldn't buy them. So they never went anywhere. Now, the playing field, as we like to call it, is much more level, and people can go to Amazon and publish directly there. They can create their own publishing companies, as you said. And this all began, I think, to a great degree with desktop publishing just
Mm-hmm.
30 years or so ago.
Right.
But the technology of online work, print on demand, are all things that have led to where we are today. Is it finished? No. Will there be more changes? No question about it. What will they be? Don't ask me.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
they will happen.
What is
There
your
are still good reasons to have real publishers. But it doesn't have to do with being an asshole about whether you're going to select something or not select something.
Yeah, exactly. Because when it comes down to it, it's the people. It's the
Yeah.
people, and you never know a topic. You just never know. There are many people. Even you talk about movies and producing of certain movies. Sometimes I believe that the critics gave totally another genre, but the critics gave Star Wars a very low rating in the beginning, very low. And look, they're still, Star Wars is still kicking it. So that's just an example. And you talk about lots of occult movies that they thought that would be flops, and they've become, really, really popular over the years. Of course, many of them have also flopped, but
And most of them do, and most of them deserve to.
yeah,
But that's the flip side of it too, and was for many, many years, with an author saying, well, you should do my book because, and then they give me some nonsense about it's the only one of its type, and I turn around and look at my shelf and I see a half a dozen on exactly the same subject. And they'd come up with some example of maybe the Celestine prophecy that had been rejected by a whole bunch of publishers and then became popular. The fact is, Celestine Prophecy was a piece of crap book to begin with, badly written, and by whatever circumstance, whatever luck, it became a success is not my measure of whether I want to produce something or not. I've got fairly narrow views on what I want to produce, and it's always been difficult to find. And I have to say, these days, it seems to be even harder to find. If any of your listeners out there are actually good writers and actually doing good books in the occult, I'd be happy to. I do not want sweetness and light, folks. That is not what we do for a living.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that, I'd like to go on to another area, though, because, well, first of all, I want to say that, I have been in touch with a few of your authors, and, I have had a few of them on my show, and I have to say that all of them have been of very good caliber and have had, the very good books. So I know that you do take your time and you do develop the relationship with everyone to choose, really the best. So, that I cannot argue. But with going on to the actual publishing industry, I've noticed, especially in along the areas of what most want to call themselves as, the left-hand path type of press, use the ethos of having producing a limited edition. What is your take on limited edition of many of the publishing houses and publishers wanting to only produce so many books? And what is your take on that? And what is your take on the limited edition of many of the publishing houses and publishers wanting to only produce so many books? And what is your take on that? And what is your take on the limited edition of many of the publishing houses and publishers wanting to only produce so many books? And what is your take on that? 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 And And I guess, in a way, it gives a hype of high demand and rarity, as well as also too, it may not be good in reference to the actual pocket when it comes down to marketing or making money, but there is a method to the madness, I'm sure. So what is your take on that?
Well, I am delighted with limited edition publishing. Not something that we do all that much ourselves, but we have at times in the past done a limited run of a particular title or a limited run of a particular binding or things of that kind for people who really want a special edition, a leather-bound edition, things of that kind. And the publishers that you're speaking of, some of whom I know quite well, will do a run of 100, and then that's the end of it, and it's in extraordinarily good bindings or beautiful editions at very high prices. And if they can make a living at that, great. I think that's terrific. One of the things that we never have made any bones about is that we're in business, as in we have to make a
I
living,
see. I
just
see.
like cats and dogs and birds and fish and lizards and all the rest. We have to make a living. And part of that is to produce things that sell and make sufficient money so that we can put food on the table and put the margarita on my desk as I have right now.
Yeah, there you go. Yes,
Now,
well, you got a
if
good
one
point
model is
there.
going to work with the limited edition methodology, that's great. If it's going to work in a mass market edition, that's fine too. There is no one single model that works for everybody. If there was, there would probably only be one publisher out there.
Well, do you think then, because you've made that quite attractive to me in reference to the limited edition, is there a point when the limited edition is, let's just say, more attractive than having something of a mass edition, a circulation of quote unquote making a living? Do you feel that making a living may almost cheapen the book then?
It certainly can. And that's one of the things that for us has been fortunate all the way through. Falcon Press was started 30 years ago as an accommodation, shall we say, to Israel Regardie. Regardie had just gotten some of his books back from another publisher because he wasn't being paid his royalties. Dr. Hyatt had just retired from being a shrink. Uh, he quickly found that flying to France on private jets was a lot of fun, but it got old after a while. And Regardie said, "How about you publish my books?" And he said, "Sure." Now, of course, we had no idea what publishing was about. We'd never done anything of the sort, and learned it all, did it all ourselves, had our own equipment, had our own printing presses, and the whole nine yards. Uh, it was a hell of a lot of fun doing it that way, although carrying around printing presses was no damn fun. But that's how we got started. But the important thing was that it was a hobby at that
Hmm.
time. We called it a retirement press. We could run the numbers and say, 30 years from now, we'll have X amount of income from these titles, and it'll be a nice supplement
Hmm.
to the money that we already made in the businesses that
Sure.
we had. I had made a bunch of money as a shrink. I had made a bunch of money in the computer field. So these were not things that we were dependent on for making a living. But at the same time, to me, I insist in any business that I'm in that it be profitable. And
Yes.
Falcon certainly is. That's it took a few years in this current go round since Hyatt's passing to become profitable, but we certainly are now.
I see. Let's go back over to Dr. Hyde, because I do believe that the last time it was not too well, it wasn't so far close to, well, it wasn't too far off of his passing. When the first time I actually did interview you, but I don't think I've ever really asked you uh, a few things that that were very personal. What type of guy was he? Aside from the business guy, because of course, being a shrink, you're always working with clients, you're always working with patients, and other such. I mean, did he enjoy doing anything like joking around and having a good time? What did he like to do for recreation? What type of person was he away from business?
Wow, that is an extraordinarily broad and wonderful question. Hyatt could be extraordinarily serious when we were working, but he could also just crack up and break up all the time. A lot of the people that he liked to have around him were crazy as loons. He enjoyed people of great diversity, as long as they had talent. You take someone like S. Jason Black, crazy as a loon, great artist, did a lot of wonderful stuff, fun to be with, mostly. Maybe if we get to a sailing trip we took across the Pacific Ocean, I'll modulate that a little bit. But these are the sorts of people that he liked to have around him, not average people, not people that did normal things, but people who were odd but talented at the same time. It's easy to find crazies. They're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
But crazies that are talented, not so easy to find. And he had a great talent for attracting people like that. He certainly had a tremendous capacity for joy, for enjoyment and pleasure, but could switch into being totally serious immediately. There's a certain analogy that I think I could come up with, which is Israel Regardie, who I've mentioned several times. Regardie, if you read his books, if you read The Golden Dawn or any of his other many books, he comes across as a very staid, down the middle of the road Englishman.
Yeah.
But he was anything but that in real life. He was one of the funniest, most enjoyable people to have around that you could ever possibly imagine. But he grew up at a time when writing was done in a certain way. And so that's the way people would see him.
Okay.
Hyatt, certainly, I think, in his writing, which is done at a more modern time, a lot of his jokes are much more obvious. But at the same time, the jokes were very serious because the work that he did was very serious. But fun, yeah. You asked about the sorts of things that he liked to do when he wasn't writing or working with students or back in the earlier days as a shrink. There were a number of things that he liked tremendously. One certainly was sailing. He had been a sailor for, 30 years before his passing. I had been around boats as a kid for many years, power boats, but when I met him, we started sailing. And he taught me how to sail, and then I bought my own boats and did a few sails from...
I need to hang out with you guys.
You like to sail too?
Well, I've done it a few times, but I need to hang out with you guys. You guys sound like you have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we just enjoyed the hell out of was just working on each other's boats. We'd buy them, fix them up, sail them across the ocean, maybe sell them, start all over again.
Yeah.
The last trip that we did was, in fact, Hyatt on his boat. He had a 39-foot cow. It was absolutely gorgeous. And we'd spent probably 2 years putting it together for long-distance sailing. Then he and S. Jason Black and I sailed it from California to Hawaii. And there's a lot of really wonderful adventures that we had, including being hit by a telephone pole in the middle of the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah, that was one of the scarier things that we've seen. 7 o'clock in the morning, Hyatt and I were talking on watch. Black was in the forepeak sleeping, and a telephone pole hits us dead on the nose. Now, of course, we didn't know it was a telephone pole then. We thought it was a whale, which is not all that uncommon to hit when you're crossing
Right,
oceans.
exactly. Especially with the waves and everything going between, the across that ocean.
Yeah. Another thing that people occasionally hit are containers that fall off
Yes.
ships
Yes.
that continue to float. So we thought we were pretty well done. It was a feeling that I can only describe as a vibration from my toes to my head and right to the top of the mast. We were pretty well finished, we thought. The telephone poles we found later, it spun, hit us a second time, and then we watched it just trail off to the stern, tar and metal stakes, the whole thing.
Wow.
Just, I was like, where did that sucker come from?
Wow.
We of course took it in the only proper occult way, which is to say, someone was trying to communicate a message to us.
Yeah, yeah. As occultists do think.
Yeah, we try to explain everything, but mind you, occultists don't have a monopoly on that. Just about everybody seems
Yeah.
absolutely impelled to explain everything, whether they can or not,
Sure.
and lacking anything better, well, we'll find a god.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, indeed.
Other thing that Hyatt liked to do that I'm sure a lot of his fans know about, in addition to the sailing, is he loved to shoot.
Excellent.
Pistols, rifles. He did some hunting for a time, but mostly target shooting. And
Mm.
he was an extraordinary shot. Uh, I think probably the best shot I've ever seen was a combination of sailing and shooting. We were out on one of his boats years ago, and he had a rifle with him, and just shooting from the hip, he took a seagull down.
Wow.
I've never seen a shot quite like it, and expect I never will again. But he was an extraordinary shot. I'm not a bad shot, mind you, but he was extraordinary.
Wow. Wow. He's a man of many talents, because he seems so serene. Some videos that I've seen, so contained. And for him to let loose and to be very active, with sailing and really shooting, which is very, because I shoot, in the UK, you really don't shoot that much, but in the
No, you
States, I
can't
used
even
to
have
shoot.
guns in the UK anymore.
They have guns here, but you know what? They shoot, what is it, clay pigeons and, little stupid stuff like that. But anyway, we won't go into that. But it's enjoyable, that's really good. I didn't realize he was such a very active guy.
Another area that he loved tremendously was food. He was an excellent cook.
Mm.
And we loved going out to dinner. Lots of wonderful restaurants, top quality restaurants that we went to all over the place. Wherever we were, we'd get on a plane and fly to San Francisco for dinner, that sort of thing. And he was also an excellent cook.
Hmm.
Uh, we definitely collaborated on some very strange dishes over the years, including some things that even we found too hot to eat because we both loved hot food. But things got a little strange sometimes when we were both, shall we say, a little bit too casual with some of the chemical substances that can be found in the world. And then started cooking. And the next thing you know, there's a little bit too much chili from him and a little too much from me. And when we got all done, well, we made some chicken curry that was just impossible. However, as it turns out, he had a friend coming to his house. He was living in Incline Village in Nevada at that time. And he had a friend coming from England.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, curry is, or at least British curry, as
Yeah,
compared to Indian
it is
curry,
called
is
British curry.
pretty
That's what I call
popular
it,
over
British
there.
curry, exactly.
So Bobby came by, and he's sitting on the couch with this container of curry that we'd made that both of us couldn't eat. And he's just going at it by spoonfuls.
Oh my goodness.
But I still have wonderful memories of a sweet and sour whole salmon that we made that same weekend.
Oh my goodness. I can see, how such a it was larger than life, him. Not only the experiences and the memories, but all what he has stood for and still has out there. Many people I know have, I've been amongst various circles, and people have mentioned his name and mentioned his works, and that's quite a legend, for someone to have passed on, and everyone have lots of great memories of him. So he's a legend still, and he will always be, because his work that he has done is timeless, because it still helps people. People can still learn from it, and as you have pointed out, you're actually I guess reconfiguring, or well, I guess making current a lot of the work that he's actually done with Heart, and in the past, with the videos. So that's great.
There are a few of us who are still in a position to do the work with individuals. His co-author on energized hypnosis, Calvin Iwema, uh,
Okay.
Mo- a medical doctor who I will not give his true name, but who is known as Mobius Frame, and some of the works that he co-authored, and myself. We still do occasionally work with individuals, but it's rare.
Yes, indeed.
Just they're just There's a lot of people that would like to do this work that, to be quite blunt, Mona, are not suited to it.
Yes, I understand that. Well, what things have changed over the years, but yeah, they say they still haven't, because the cult is, I guess these days it's hard for me to describe what the occult is, because the way people have actually put things out. What is your take on how the occult is going? Because you've been into the industry from many aspects. From living with people who are legendary names, to actually publishing and saying things before they actually go to print. And it's not like, well, I know you're not 19. Uh, but um, you've seen lots of occult, literary, aspects, and just lifestyles. Have you seen the occult change over the years? I mean, what is your take on today's occultists, of the younger people, and even the people who have become of age, and the things that are out there?
That's a wonderful question. Uh, I suppose that one of the things that is at least beneficial to have a perspective of years, and I have a few of those, is to see bell-bottom pants come back. You know,
Woohoo! I
if you,
remember
if,
those. I used to wear those as a little girl.
yeah, if you hold on to any particular style long enough,
Yeah.
it will recur because,
Yeah.
as the old pithy aphorism says, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yes.
And that is true in the occult as well. There's not really very much new. It's repackaged, reformed, put a new ribbon on it. It comes and goes out of favor. Uh, Seances become channeling, and it just goes on and on and on. I have seen then, from the perspective of my years, a lot of these things come and go and go and come. And for the most part, they haven't changed a whole lot. The people that are involved with it haven't changed a whole lot. Most of the folks, unfortunately, in the occult are simply fringe people who have been rejected by everything else.
Yeah.
And that's why they attach themselves to the occult, just as people who attach themselves to any particular belief system need to have an association with other people. We all need that. And the fact is that what we become associated with doesn't seem to matter all that much. You can become a flaming Christian or a Nazi or an occultist. It doesn't seem to matter to most people. And I've watched the same people move from one of those to the next, to the next, to the next. They hop from hope to hope, as Hyatt used to put it.
Hmm.
There are, however, a few people that stand apart from that. And that's the 10% or so that Hyatt and I would want to associate with. The people who are not just simply there because they're nuts, but because they actually see something in it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is value to be had in the occult, as there is in just about everything else. But as the Buddhists might put it, when you've learned it, drop it.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I've seen a huge trend, and a lot of separation as well. And I guess really it's as you mentioned, it's a recycling. You know, it just goes round and around and around and around. And your analogy of bell bottoms is just spot on because yeah, you have seen it, you know, been there before. It happens over and over again, and I struggle sometimes because many people you know, when I'm speaking to people, when I'm talking to people privately, they often ask, you know, the occult is, well, most people would like to think that it's a level above lots of other, constricted type of religions and sects, whereas that you can get out of it and think higher, you're empowered. Um, Stop
Excuse
laughing.
me.
Stop
But yes,
laughing.
I've been hearing that all my life too.
Yes, and
Usually
then
from
you come to a
people who
point.
can't tie their own shoes.
Yeah, right. And then you come to a point and you ask yourself, well, okay, it's been it's been 30 years since this particular author has done that, or people were of a certain consciousness. Then you get people doing the same thing over again, like nothing has ever happened. Hyatt has put his stuff out a long time ago. Yet where is the stretch of people having a sense of consciousness, a conscious awareness to the point of aha, now we can graduate and act a little bit more mature. um I don't
Right.
know.
We've been around for a couple 100,000 years as Homo sapiens. It hasn't changed much from the beginning to
I
now.
know. I
We're
know.
still murdering each other in droves. Why stop now?
I know. I know. I guess it's, you know what, when it feels good, you just gotta keep on doing it.
I have to say that one of the tragedies of Hyatt's life, I must say, is that he didn't live long enough to see what's going on today. He believed, and I totally agree with him, that the human species is doomed. There is no place for it to go except extinction. The possibility certainly exists that we might be able to create a new species, re engineer a new species. We have the technology at our grasp to do that kind of thing, but the human species right now is gone. And he would have enjoyed watching the degeneration that has happened in just the few years since his death. He was looking forward to it.
The chaos.
Yeah. And mind you, we haven't seen anything like what it will be in the years to come.
Yes.
But it's becoming just really weird out there.
Yes, I would have to say that that's quite right, and you're right. We are leading to our own self-destruction. However, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, as they say, and there's always a possibility of, and I'm not trying to be overly optimistic, but there is a possibility. You never know what may happen. Although I'm leaning towards the other end of, shit happens, and we're actually putting a lot of shit into the pan to make it huge, and it cause a big stink. So I'm not in favor of thinking that we can bring ourselves out of it, especially since this is 2000. We're in 2013, 2000. Pretty soon 2014, and it's pretty bad that we still have to consider. We still don't see a progression.
Well, one of the things that Hyatt put a lot of attention to in the last several years of his life was real hard brain physiology research. Now, he was trained as a laboratory scientist, and that's unusual, of course, among cultists anyway, but he used to do some serious laboratory psychology before he got into clinical. He would do brain implants in rats. He was published author in many peer-reviewed articles. One of these days I have to get on Wikipedia, by the way, and update some things. They keep claiming that they don't know his published works. I have.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did some really serious work at the University of Toronto and other places on brain implantations. And this is going back way before MRIs and CAT scans and all that sort of thing. So he was always intrigued with what, in fact, can we learn about the human brain. And what he learned about the human brain from the research that's been done over the last 20 years or so is that we're fucked.
Yeah.
If you, what I have to say for myself personally, if there's any argument about God that I like the best, is that there could not possibly be a God unless he is the worst possible sadist imaginable to have built the human brain the way it did. It's just piece upon tops upon chunks thrown together, just built with interconnections that don't work very well. They survive, which is, of course, the way evolution predicts it would. But for a god to say, wait a minute, it may work fine for a lizard, but for a human organism, maybe we should re-engineer it from scratch. And that's something we can do ourselves today, or certainly in the next few years. And by that, I mean literally create a brand new organism.
Okay.
But we've seen that in science fiction for many, many decades now, and it usually doesn't end well.
Yes, well, the only problem to what you're saying is the actual mechanic behind the actual let's say end product, because if the actual human mind, quote unquote, is fucked up, then the actual product has a very high possibility of having one of the chromosomes of having, being fucked up, because you think if the mechanic is screwed up and really has, a twisted mind, just as, the person who made the atom bomb, I was told it wasn't really meant to, of course, Japan and Hiroshima and things like that. Things get into the wrong hands. Things end up being opposite of what what the intent was. I'm sure Muhammad did not believe that his people, followers would actually use the name of Allah to actually take that upon themselves to bomb people so much, to the point of even Christianity, and people forcing people to become Christians in so many various countries. So, it's the mechanic behind it that's really screwed up. So I worry that if we do something like that, it is the mechanic that may try to create in its own behalf the selfishness and demise of humanity going forward.
Well, if we are created in God's image, as the Judeo-Christian background would suggest, that God is really seriously perverted. And but what you said in your examples was exactly right. One of the things that I tend to like to look at, though, is history. Now, Islam started about 1,200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's change our perspective and say, okay, what was Christianity like 1,200 years after it started?
Mm-hmm.
Dark Ages.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Bad shit. Crusades, Inquisitions. I mean, so if Islam is going to follow that same timetable, we've got a few hundred years of really unpleasant things happening. But mind you, at the same time, we have Christians who would be more than happy to compete with them and start the Crusades all over again. And the rest of us be caught in the middle.
Oh, goodness. There is no hope. We do need to
I agree, there's no hope. I don't think there's any hope at all.
I mean, okay, fine. So we do a new brain, and that new brain, what does it do? Slaughter everyone that doesn't believe the way that new brain thinks. So, again, it's this mass slaughtery. We might as well have, World War II or something coming up. Or, it's just really horrible. I don't know. I'll just continue doing the videos for now.
As I continue doing what I do, I don't have too much hope for myself personally because I'm already a bit older. But one of the things that Hyatt and I used to discuss is that either we were the last generation of mortals or the first generation of immortals. Mind you, we were wrong, certainly on the first point. We are not the last generation of mortals. I think there's at least one more coming on. But immortality, functional immortality, is right there.
Yes.
Mind you, most human beings don't seem to be terribly interested in that. They're interested in whatever nonsense is on the news program of the moment. But there's a real possibility of some huge changes, including getting off this planet. Years ago, a group called the L5 Society said it this way: the meek shall inherit the earth. The rest of us are leaving.
Very good.
And that's something that we can see happening with colonies on the moon. Uh, Robert Heinlein's Moon is a Harsh Mistress comes immediately to mind when I think of that. Getting onto Mars, getting out of the solar system altogether. Certainly with a brain entirely different than we have right now. But are we going to have some really unpleasant mass slaughters between now and then? Yeah, we are. Years ago, one of the things that's always stuck in my mind, many years ago, when I was in the computer field, I was talking with a fellow about the possibility of immortality. This was probably around 1975. And he turned to me and said, "It's impossible." I said, "Really? Why would you say that?" "Because the Bible says it's impossible. We're supposed to die." I said, "Oh, fuck." There's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go with something like that.
No. Oh, goodness. Well, with that note, I have to say, I guess, you know what? Let's see. Let's see what, the actual end will be, or let's just say the continuation or the next phase of our lives will take us. Up until that time, I'm not going to worry about trying to predict or to even argue about it. I will have to say this last note on immortality, that I do believe that people have the thought of immortality wrong, to really want it if they aren't going to really live their life significantly anyway, because most people, I guess, forget the fact that many people pass away whilst their immortal lives exist, and there's a lot of pain with that, of losing many people. And if you're not making a difference and you're not really going about your own life in a very significant way that matters, it's really a waste of time to have that person even in space and time. So for those people who really want to have immortality, if you're not going to do anything with your life, then just clock out. Actually, that's what I have to say.
You're absolutely right. And the sad part of most lives is that they have no point.
Exactly. So, I mean, immortality, many people want to do it. In the UK here, there is the latest National Geographic magazine that came out that people will be living up until about 120 years old, and they were naming some type of genetic genes and chromosomes that go in between various ones, such as there is a one gene that allows people, I think in the Honduras, they don't get cancer, and 100% they don't get cancer, nor diabetes. However, they don't grow past 4 feet. Also, too, in Japan, there is a gene amongst Japanese American men that allow them to, not get heart disease, to the point of many Jews, Eastern people of Jewish descent, don't get diabetes or have heart attacks. They're 68% exempt from that. So they're actually trying lots of things, but again, I say the longer people do live, the higher rate of fuck-ups that we do have, crime, and lots of corruption. If we can inhibit the earth with many people who live long, who give purpose and really contribute to even, the goodness of this earth to continue, instead of, really tearing it down, then I think that would make a difference. But we don't need room for crap.
I completely agree with you. There are tweaks that we can do. Certainly, the genetic tweaks that you're speaking about will extend life to 120, 150. But while we're getting to 120, 150, research hasn't stopped. And so we'll get to 200, 300, and while that's happening, we'll get further on still. And that's why I speak of functional immortality. And it's
Exactly.
not going to happen in one jump. It will probably happen in pieces. But what will there be? I mean, I have heard so many times from so many people, well, what will that do to the Social Security system? Fuck the Social Security system. Who cares? Want to die just so that you can support some retirement plan from the U.S. government? Are you kidding me? Is that your goal in life? Uh, these are people who have the notion of totally static existence.
Yes, and you don't really need that. And honestly, I really don't want to have to worry about prolonging, bad government situations and waiting. It would be horrible for people to have to retire at 150. He says, you know what? People are living longer. You got to stay working until 150. Forget it.
I'd love to be living on Mars.
Yes. Well, with that, I know that you do have lots of the authors that you do have. Are you picking up more authors? Because I know that you have a very select of them, and they seem to be around a lot. They seem to have probably discovered the fountain of youth because they're hanging around pretty long on with you. Do you have any other upcoming artists or upcoming authors, I should say, that you
We
would like
do.
to announce?
Well, certainly in recent years, we've seen a real burgeoning of work, particularly film work, from Antero Ali. He hasn't been writing so much as he has been producing some absolutely amazing underground films of the type that will never be mainstream, just like Hyatt's work will never be mainstream.
Sure.
One of the books that we brought out that we are most pleased with in recent times was the Sorceress Cagliostro's Blood and
Yes.
Sorcery Bible,
Yes.
and we are certainly looking forward to seeing more from her.
She's
We have
fabulous, by the way. I had her on my show. She's fabulous.
She
Yes.
is totally remarkable. I even saw her on television a year or so ago on a show called Oddities,
Okay.
which is definitely high up on the Weider meter. If you have a chance to see it, I don't know if you catch it in the UK, but it's about a shop in New York that sells unusual
I've
things.
seen the
And
shop, but I haven't been in there yet. Yeah, yeah.
so she was featured on that show. She knows the folks there quite well. And we do have some new things coming up that we haven't signed yet, but one of the difficulties that we have is simply finding good works. We
Hmm.
get a lot of submissions, but as it has always been for the last 30 plus years, most of them, to be kind, are not suitable.
Okay, well, before we then close off on this particular interview, could you kindly give your prerequisite in, really helping those potential, authors who would like to publish through you what you're looking for?
Probably the most important quality that we look for, that most other publishers would not say in this way, is that we want someone who really stands behind his work.
Hmm.
Not just somebody who's putting words on a page. Certainly, we want someone who is literate, and I have to mention that because the illiteracy level is just astonishing. When someone can't spell their own name, that's usually a quick down check, and I'm not making that up. We
You're
see
not.
that.
Okay.
No, I wish I could say that. But if you're going to send me an email with a proposal, spell the words right, be reasonably literate, tell me what the books are about. This is not rocket surgery, as some would put it. So do it, send it to me if and only if you're in our genre. If you're going to write something about New Age cosmic foo-foo, as we love to call it, we're not going to publish it. It's just not what we do.
Mm.
We tend more toward the dark side of things, certainly, but it also has to have some real background and validity. A lot of blind assertions and nonsense does not catch my attention. I'm trained as a scientist, hardcore chemist, not social sciences, the real stuff. And I'm also an occultist. So you're going to have to attract both parts of me if you want to get my attention. That's not to say that you have to be both yourself, but don't insult my intelligence.
Yes.
So if you have something that you really stand behind, that you've worked with, that you know has some validity to it because you've tested it, do not tell me that it's never ever been done before in the history of the world when I know damn well it has. There's a lot of don'ts, but the do's are not that difficult.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Well, that shouldn't be too hard for everyone out there.
I wish you were right. I wish that were so. Years ago.
So I hope and bestow upon you many submissions, dear Nick.
Maybe not so many as we used to get. We used to get something like 1,000 a year, and we would publish maybe 10. So I don't know that I want to handle 1,000 anymore. But a few a month would be fine, especially if there were things we'd actually like to publish. There haven't been very many, even over these last 5 years. We haven't been publishing that many new titles by new authors, not because we don't want to. We do. We really, really do. But simply because the works that we've been getting have not been that interesting to us.
I see. And have you seen that ever to your demise of turning away the wrong author and work?
Well, there's never been that much good stuff out there, to be quite blunt. I mean, authors, whether it's Crowleys or Regardies or Wilsons or Learys or Hyatts or Antro Ali, there just aren't that many of them.
I see.
And many of them are now gone or getting older or getting into other things. And one of the things that we've been looking for the last 20 years is someone younger and new that has a whole bunch of books in them or a whole bunch of works in them, whether they're audio or video or whatever. And we haven't been seeing it.
I see. On that last note about the video, what do you look for video? Because I do know that, as you know, that the surge in video and YouTube and people putting things out there of instructional videos and so have you. Are you also venturing into that heavier, or is it more of a literary sense? We
would love to do more instructional video. And there are a few that we've seen that were pretty good. And for one reason or another, having nothing to do with their quality, haven't produced as yet. We may find ourselves back in with them at some time.
I see.
But that's an area that we really would like to do because it gives people a much quicker and more accurate way of working with it than words do.
Sure, indeed. Well, look, it's been fabulous having you on, and you lead a very full life and have led a full life, and I thank you for sharing the information, and your experiences of past with Dr. Hyatt, because it seems like he was a cool guy to hang out with. I miss the fact and envy the fact that you guys have traveled so much and had such a good time and done all this stuff. I don't think I could have handled the curry because the hot stuff is just not for me. But it just seems like everything is great, and it seems like everything is just going up there for you. And I love your sense of your practicality about pretty much everyone's fucked, but there's always hope.
Well, I think that Rajneesh said it really, really well. He's going to play it right out to the punchline, and he did. You live, you die. If there's anything beyond that, I give up. I don't have enough data to support it. I've certainly experienced a lot of weird stuff with people who have died, but at the same time, I'm not so sure. In any case, the punchline is death. And that, I think was one of the most brilliant things that I've heard in my lifetime. You just have to continue the joke until the punchline.
Yeah, well, we'll see exactly what happens after that. You never know. So, on that note, Nick, I'm going to say thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure, as usual, and you've got some great work, great people that you work with, and I only wish you the best.
Thank you, Mona, and I look forward to maybe our next interview in the future when we might have some new things to talk about too.
Oh, it'll always be that way because I can only see, I can, you're always busy, always busy, and you've got great authors. So,
And you certainly are keeping it alive. I appreciate
well,
that.
thank you. Take care.